Welcome to this week's Weekend Wisdom. Our Weekend Wisdom podcast is where we answer your questions. So we need you to send us your questions. You can do that by sending them to info@creatingafamily.org, or you can click on the link in the show notes to send them as well. Today's question comes from Debbie. She says, my 4-year-old foster son moved in 9 months ago. He will likely remain with me permanently, and the application is in progress. I was his 5th foster home when he moved in. There was neglect at his birth parents and abuse in a previous foster home. Last weekend, he was being babysat by my sister and brother-in-law. They went to the basement to show him a toy. He saw a large dog cage they were planning to sell online. He was immediately triggered, ran upstairs, hid under the bed, and it took 10 minutes for him to calm down to feel safe. He was obviously placed in a dog cage at some point. I've reported to social services. How do I support him and talk to him about what happened and make him feel safe? How should I support him and help calm his nervous system if he is triggered again? Wow, Debbie, that poor child. You know, what's particularly upsetting was that he was removed from a neglectful situation and put into an abusive situation by the system. I mean, talk about a colossal failure. That is one. I am really glad that you have reported it to social services. So your question was how to help him feel safe and calm down his nervous system. And you're already doing the best thing you can, which is providing him with a loving, structured, predictable, and calm home. And the second thing I would strongly recommend is getting him into therapy, preferably something like TheraPlay, given his age. He needs a way to express what's happening to him to help him start the healing process. Another thing to help him calm his nervous system is to help him learn to self-regulate or self-soothe when he is triggered. And the best way to teach self-regulation is through repeated modeling and co-regulation with us, the adults in his life. And self-soothing is a critical skill for our kids to learn, but many of the kids who've experienced trauma haven't yet mastered it, or they've developed unhealthy self-comforting tools that really won't serve them in the future and probably aren't serving them well now. So self-soothing skills are a necessary element for kids to learn and how they learn how to self-regulate. So if your adopted or foster child struggles with self-soothing skills, that's hard to say, self-soothing skills. The question is, how do you go back to work with them to help build these skills? And I'm going to give you 3 tips. The first is direct soothing, and that is as simple as it sounds. It's what you do with a newborn. When a newborn cries, you pick it up, you rub its back, you jiggle it, you bounce it up and down, you cuddle it. And some version of that works with older kids, but you have to shift things a bit. Here's some examples. 1, hugging. Now, hopefully your child is open to that. You need to ask, but assuming your child will allow it, a good warm hug is both grounding and soothing. And if your child is one who is not ready to be hugged by you, you need to respect that. But there's something you could do. It's called the butterfly hug. And you face each other and you are mirroring each other's actions. And you hug yourself and then you tap your shoulders alternately, in a regular rhythm. And that tapping provides what they call bilateral stimulation. That's also can be grounding. And hopefully you're moving up into a direct, warm, good hug. Showers are another way of direct soothing. I hear there are some people who can be soothed by a cold shower. I find that hard to believe since I am definitely not one of them. But a good hot shower or a hot bath can really work to kind of soothe the raw nerves that your child may be experiencing. And one of the best ways is through pets. If you have a pet, that petting and snuggling with our furry friends is just a wonderful way. It's a tactile way of providing a sense of safety and physical stimulation that can often help you calm down. And hair play or back rubs, depending on your child, having their head scratched or their back scratched or rubbed is really effective. So the second tip is deep breathing. And that's a way to help our kids self-soothe. Now, you don't do this or introduce this. You do it, but you don't introduce it in the middle of a meltdown or when your child is out of control. You need to start practicing this tool ahead of time so that they can learn it. My favorite of the deep breathing techniques is called pizza breathing because I think it is so visual. You act like you're holding a piece of pizza in your hand, then you bring it up to your nose and close to your face and breathe in deeply to catch that smell of the wonderful cheese and gooey and hot cheese and sauce. Then you blow slowly out of your mouth, gently onto the imaginary slice to cool them down. And you got to be careful. You can't blow too hard because you'll blow the cheese off or splatter your neighbor with the sauce. So it's a slow intake through your nose and slow blow out through your mouth. It's very effective. However, it's not always natural. And when your kid is not able to focus and is in a moment of being triggered, a technique that can help them calm down before they could practice the deep breathing or any of the other techniques we're talking about, it's called the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding method. It's for helping your child center and then be able to get engaged to be able to think about deep breathing. What this tool does, and again, you have to practice this when you're not in the middle of the meltdown. So all of these take some practice ahead of time. So the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding method is, first thing you do is you look for you name 5 things you can see. Then you name 4 things that you can hear. Then you name 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. It helps bring the kids back to their current environment and away from the trigger that's sending them off into a meltdown. Another tip, or the last tip, for a dysregulated child is movement. Many, many children will respond to increased physical activity. It helps them calm down. Now you're going to have to figure out what works for your kid to burn off this energy and when their big motions are spiraling out of control. One tip is to throw, or perhaps better, roll a ball with your child while talking about what happened. The action of the back and forth is rhythmically soothing. The added benefit is that it teaches reciprocity by pairing it with you ask a question, then you roll it to them, they answer. That can be very effective for kids to help calm them down. And of course, things like jumping on a trampoline, or for older kids, going out for a run, or jumping up and down, doing jumping jacks, things like that can work as well. Some other resources that I would recommend for you from our archive, we did a terrific podcast with Dr. Bruce Perry, and I would recommend that you can go to our site, creatingafamily.org, and just search for Dr. Bruce Perry, and that's a podcast. We also have a tip sheet for 6 tips for creating attachment, and that's from Dr. Karen Purvis. And again, you could just search for it on our site. And the last one I would recommend is using scripts to build trust. Again, just search for scripts to build trust on our site, and I think you'll find it. All 3 of those are really useful. I think that will help you in parenting this little guy. So thanks, Debbie, so much for your question. And before you go, let me remind everybody that Creating a Family has a Facebook support group. We've got about 11,000 members. If you're experiencing something, I guarantee somebody in that group has also experienced it. We also have some adult adoptees, former foster youth, a few birth parents. It's a really helpful place to get different perspective. Strongly encourage you do that. Go over there and join it. It is facebook.com/groups/creatingafamily. Or just go to Facebook and type in Creating a Family and you'll find it that way too. Thanks for joining us, and I will see you next week.